We're just days away from the second round of Democratic presidential primary debates. This time, the candidates are making their case in Detroit. Joe Biden has slipped in the polls since the first debates, but new polls out this week show the former vice president still holding on to his lead over the large field. A CBS News Battleground Tracker poll out this week also shows Biden maintaining his lead. But other top-tier candidates are gaining on him. Let's bring in Zach Friend and Michael Graham. Zach is a Democratic strategist and former Obama for America spokesperson. And Michael is a CBSN political contributor, conservative columnist, and political editor at Inside Sources. So Biden's lead slipped after Senator Kamala Harris challenged him on his civil rights record in the first debate. This week, Senator Cory Booker raised doubts on Biden's plan to revamp federal sentencing laws and drug policy. They'll all be center stage in the debate on Wednesday. So, Zach, what does Biden need to do to maintain or even make gains on his polling lead?
You know, half of all primary voters in the Democratic primary actually self-identify as either moderate or conservative, and I think it's really a lane that Vice President Biden is owning. Polls generally do bounce around after debates. I'm not surprised to see some of the settling. But overall, I think he had a pretty good week, especially when you look at the general election polling where they put him as a matchup against President Trump. So I think what he just needs to do is actually, in some respects, stay the course and not overcorrect as a result of what happened in the last debate.
Stay in that middle lane. Well, one poll in particular caught President Trump's eye this week. A Fox News poll shows Biden leading the president by 10 points among registered voters. The president tweeted about it, saying Fox News polls have been terrible. Michael, should this poll concern Mr. Trump?
Look, every poll that shows you behind 10 should concern him. The real poll that should concern him is the one that consistently shows that he can't get his approval rating above 44%. I mean, when you set a record and it's 44% out of 100, that's not a great record. So, but by the way, Zach is 100% right. In fact, I thought one of the few missteps that Joe Biden has had have been overcorrecting. I thought, for example, it was interesting that he chose to abandon his long-held support for the death penalty. America has never opposed the death penalty. There's never been a majority against death penalty ever, going back in Gallup to 1937. Right now, it's a 15 to 20 point win. I understand the Democratic primary vote is different from that, but that's a kind of issue that Biden can use to burnish what is his one key selling point. I can beat Trump. Polls like that today, that's what helps Biden. As long as people are focusing on winning, Biden's in great shape. If they start focusing on who represents what the Democratic primary voter wants or the progressive end of the party, then he's not going to do as well.
But do you think President Trump should he be nervous that Biden is leading in these polls?
Of course he should. Of course he should be nervous.
All right.
He lost the first time, he lost the popular vote. He's struggling now. They're talking about making pickup states out of Nevada, New Mexico, and New Hampshire. I cover New Hampshire almost every day at Inside Sources. I'll tell you, he's down by 19 points in the average of polls in New Hampshire. So, yes, when you're that president and you're struggling like this, President Trump should be worried every single day, yes.
All right. And Zach, Montana Governor Steve Bullock is the only new face we'll see on the debate stage. So what should he and other lower polling candidates do to make sure they make it to the next round of debates?
I think the governor is a very compelling candidate. I just think that he might have a difficult time breaking through. While I do think a lot of people haven't actually made up their mind yet in the primary, it's kind of an inside baseball game still at this point. Realistically, he's going to need to show where he is either on policy or personality that's fundamentally different from some of the other people up there on the stage. And there's a lot of people up on the stage. It's larger than my kids' preschool classroom, so it's pretty darn big up there. But with that said, I think that he also does own that same lane. I think Mayor Buttigieg also has a lane that's fundamentally different from the Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren wing of the party. And so I think that there is, remember, this election will be won and lost in the industrial Midwestern states. Just the president has no path if he doesn't pull an inside straight again in those states. And what candidate can actually pull that is a fundamental question that Democratic voters need to ask themselves. And to Michael's point, which is spot on, the one thing that unites Democrats more than anything is the desire to make this president a one-term president. And I think fundamentally they're going to be asking themselves who can do that. And they'll be watching the debates to see who that is.
So every candidate on that stage,
and
especially
if I can follow up on that, if I can follow up, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt, but if I can follow up on that, I think the governor from Montana, Governor Bullock, he is a compelling character because what is Joe Biden's #1 challenge? It's Joe Biden. He's older. He's had some stumbles. He could do something that causes himself to basically take himself out of the race, have a struggle, whatever. And then you start looking around. Who's the natural person to fill that lane? And you could argue that it is the governor of a deep red state who won re-election and who speaks the kind of language that those voters in those industrial Midwestern states like to hear, like Governor Bullock.
But Governor Bullock has a long way to go if that is the case. Quick question.
Yes,
the
he does.
Mueller
A long
hearings
way.
are over. The Mueller hearings are over. Democrats say they are stepping up their own probe of the president. Michael, what does the Trump campaign want to see Democrats do on the impeachment matter?
Go as far as they can. They want to see full impeachment. They cheer every time they hear Congressman Nadler say, you know, we basically started an impeachment inquiry anyway, even though the rules say we can. They can read the polls. There is not a single poll that shows the majority of Americans want to see an impeachment. The NBC Wall Street Journal poll had it down to 21% supporting impeachment. And I just want to point something out. People hear that and they think, oh, I didn't know Trump was so popular. It's not because people like Trump. It's because they want Congress to do something meaningful. And there is nothing meaningful in the average life of the average working American about this fight that's going on inside Washington, this he said, she said battle that Robert Mueller really, really messed up for the Democrats because he took away the credibility of his reputation with his poor performance. And so now it really has devolved into just partisan sniping. And a majority of Americans keep saying, we don't care, move on, do something for my family.
So President Trump wants those Democrats to keep sniping, taking away from their efforts towards 2020. So, Zach, how do you expect candidates to talk about impeachment if they're asked about it during the debates next week?
Well, I think that there's sort of three roads here. There's a constitutional, a political, and a practical. I mean, there's probably a constitutional case for the House to do something, at least as far as an inquiry goes. There's a political interest in safe seat Democrat seats to do something, but there isn't in all of these seats that we won that actually carried the House, which is something we need to remember. Those are more moderate seats. Those are more suburban seats. And then there's a practical matter, which is that the Senate would never actually vote to convict. So this will end up going nowhere in the long run. I don't know which of those three will end up winning out when all's said and done, but I do think this sort of on the fence, continually not making a decision about what to do isn't doing anything for us for 2020 because it doesn't allow for policy discussions to happen. Now, policy discussions that may die in the Senate all the same, but you need to put forth a platform that shows to these voters that you actually have something that matters to them. And right now, hearing after hearing after hearing really just speaks to a subset of the base. And even so, only about 100 Dems have signed on to this. So it's not even the majority of Dems in the House that actually agree with this proposal. And a lot of voters, I think, are looking to see how Dems or anybody is going to make their lives better. And I'd like to see the candidates talk about that. I
like to hear that you're talking about what is practical. And finally, we will end on a question we do every week. Michael, who had a big week and who had a bad week?
I have been very reluctant since we've done this to give Joe Biden a big week because I honestly believe he's not that strong a candidate. But I think he had a big week this week, and in part because of the impeachment talk, it talks to the base and to the to those Democratic voters that are going to vote Democrat no matter what. And and Biden stands out even more as the kind of pragmatic. Hey, I can get lots of people to vote for me. I'm not with those people on the edge. I'm in the middle. So that was good. Bad week, Kamala Harris. Senator Harris has got to find some answers for some of her decisions when she was a prosecutor, and she's got to find some answers for questions today. Instead of picking, yes, I'm for that, no, I'm not for that, yes, I'm for it again. I mean, this is not Cirque du Soleil, Senator. This is a political campaign. Pick an answer, stick to it.
All right, Zach, what do you think? Biden big, Kamala Harris bad?
I definitely think that Biden had a winning week in the sense that he is looking like an adult in the room, and the polling for the general election is good for him. I also think that here's an interesting one. I'll choose the same winner and loser. Bipartisanship is a winner from the budget deal standpoint. Who even knew that Congress could come together with the administration and come up with something that they could mostly agree on? I didn't think that was even possible. But bipartisanship was clearly a loser during the Mueller hearings. I mean, it really was just a completely theatrical show on the Republican side to pass basically some conspiracy theories. And on the Democratic side, they were basically asking Mueller to state what was in the report, which a number of people have already read. So I'm not really sure what it accomplished in that regard. But bipartisanship got some win on the budget and debt ceiling and probably a loss on the Mueller hearing side.
Well, Zach Friend and Michael Graham, thank you for your analysis. We'll see you soon.